Hey everybody, it's Ben Schneider back again for another episode of the Ben Schneider Show. Obviously, a little bit different circumstances and setup here, but I hope you all are managing well and staying safe. My guest for this episode is my teammate Josh Crowder. So, Josh, welcome.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. First of all, I just want to catch up a little bit. I know it's been crazy these last few weeks, and the situation's changing really by the hour. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing okay. I think that God has really given me a sense of peace about this, and you know, um, I just have this sense of okay, we're in these crazy times, these crazy circumstances, and I know that He's working, and I know that He's God, and in the end, that He's going to use everything to His glory. And so I think that I've been able to find peace in that, and know that I'm exactly where He wants me right at this moment. Um, I'm staying sane, as hard as that is to do in a house of 8 people. That's not meant for 8 people. Um, I'm luckily able to still work right now. So I have a job at a farm, but it's
Okay.
much more than a farm. Um, it we host different events, like weddings during most of the year because we have some really cool old barns from like the 1830s, that are like cool with hand honed beams all the way up. Um, then we have also, of course, we raise animals, and then we have a farm store, which I've been working in. So luckily, we're considered essential, so I've been working.
Yeah, that's good. Of course, I work in the mailroom up at campus, and obviously we're not there right now, so that's been tough. And yeah, just found out that we're not going to be able to move out for a little bit longer because of the lockdown up in Mass. So
Yeah, I saw that while I was in class, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not going back at all anymore.
yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, at this point, I have doubts about coming back in August. Like it's just I feel like everything just they keep saying, well, we're going to extend spring break by a week, and now it's through Easter, and now everything's online the rest of the semester, and but you can still come get your stuff, and now you can't come get your stuff anymore. So I
Yeah,
don't know. I feel like this thing isn't going to peak for another couple of weeks yet, at least, and as long as it's getting worse, I don't really know.
yeah, I don't. I think the big thing is that we don't really know, and even what we've been told right now that might not be the full picture, and I think nobody knows. Um, but I think it's okay that we just sit tight and we just be still, because the Lord's in control.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good mindset to have. Yeah, well, first of all, Josh, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. I know I've been your teammate for almost a year now already. But really, what I do with most of my guests here, I'd start from the very beginning and just want to ask where you grew up, where you went to high school, what that early life was like for you, and since you're my teammate, how you got started in running. So just go ahead and start from the beginning there.
Okay, so I was born in 2001 to my parents. I was named after my father. I'm Joshua David Crowder the second. He was obviously the first. Um, I was the oldest and the firstborn. Um, I am the oldest of 6 kids. As I mentioned before, there's 8 of us. And I grew up in one house for most of my childhood. I lived in a town right outside a big city, right outside Albany, New York. Not a huge city, but it's a city nonetheless. So I lived in a fairly urban setting until the night before 8th grade. Um, I moved, and it was the worst year. 8th grade was awful because I was in a new spot. I hadn't wanted to move in the first place. Um, I was just so bitter. I didn't know anybody. It was awful. Um, yeah, a big part of that was running for me, and why I was so bitter was because I had started 7th grade. Um, my so I played football all throughout school. I started in 3rd grade and played all the way through senior year of high school. And I played on this league my 7th grade year, and my quarterback's dad was the coach, and he was also the strength and conditioning coach at the local high school. And he said, hey, at the end of the season, he said, hey, come up with me, come run indoor track with me, and let's see if we can get you faster because you're pretty fast. I said, what? Okay. And then I got involved in that program at Colony, and I felt so special because I had the invite to go up. So normally you have to wait till outdoor to run track as a 7th grader. They have what's called a modified level. I don't know if that's nationwide, but we have a modified level, which was for 7th and 8th graders. But what I got lucky enough to do is in indoor, I got to go right up to the JV level, the freshman JV. And so I felt so special because I was running JV freshman as a 7th grader. And I felt so special because I was running like ahead of all my other 7th grade friends. Which for somebody who didn't have many friends, that was a big like ego booster. That was a big confidence booster. I had something to say for myself. But yeah, from that 7th grade year, I just fell in love with the sport. And I just loved everything. And then the more I got, the more I wanted to learn. And then the more I wanted to learn, the more that I wanted to learn. I'm fascinated by, the mechanics and training and all the things that go into, and really even more so from a coaching perspective. I'm just fascinated by how the sport works because it's so complex. And then so in 8th grade, I came from a really good school, Colony. I saw myself in a really good future, in a really good program, and I had made significant gains, obviously, in 1 year, as you do when it's your first year. But I moved to a school that wasn't so good, and I was heartbroken. I was really bitter, and this played out in my walk with God. I was really bitter towards him, and I really asked him, why do you want me to move? Why are you moving me? What are you doing here? And he used a woman at church to tell me that, maybe God could use you in Colony, but where he wants to use you and where he wants you to be is at Burnt Hills. That's the school I graduated from. And that's his plan for you. And so it didn't dawn on me till several years later, but now I see that God was working when he had me move. And that's actually part of how I got to Gordon. So when I moved to Burnt Hills, freshman year, started attending this thing called Young Life. And through that, I was exposed to La Vida. So I don't know if those of you who don't know, but La Vida does programs for the college, but they also do programs for other outside groups to come through. So I came through as kind of a youth group. And there were 5 or 6 guys that I went with, and we took a trip. And that really changed my life, changed the trajectory of my life. I was introduced to Gordon, and I was introduced to things like Be Here Now, which were really impactful on my life and on my walk with God. And I think that was the first time in my life where I felt my faith become real in my own. And yeah, so that set me up to be exposed to Gordon and be exposed to, the school. And then it kind of just sat in the back of my brain for a couple of years. So that was sophomore year of high school, the summer before sophomore year. And I think I knew since then that I was going to come here.
Did you look anywhere else, or was it pretty much always Gordon?
I looked at a couple schools. I looked between Cedarville and Houghton and Geneva. But I was very clear that I wanted a Christian school. And I went and looked at Geneva first, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't like their tech coach and got along with him. But they didn't really have what I wanted to do. They didn't have good language program, which was my primary draw. I went and walked on Cedarville, and I walked off campus and said, Dad, no, there's something wrong there. I don't know, but that's not where I'm supposed to go. And then I came for Honors Day in November last year, 2 years ago, actually, 2 Novembers ago, and I instantly just fell in love with it. It was just something about walking on campus, and I just knew, talking to people, and just there was just that sense of peace I got about knowing that, yes, okay, this is where God has called me. This is a place of opportunity. I think I saw it being so close to Boston. I saw it as kind of a land of opportunity.
You mentioned getting involved with La Vida. Were the outdoors always a part of your life growing up, or was that something that came a little bit later?
Yeah. So the outdoors have always been a part of my life. I grew up actually with a family camp in the Adirondack. Um, Actually, about 20 minutes from base camp, from La Vida base camp. So I know the area very well. I've spent my whole life going up to camp. Up at camp, I've been canoeing and kayaking since I was little. I learned how to water ski when I was maybe 10. But going out on the boat, having campfires, yeah, I was all slightly exposed to everything. I loved, just being out in the backyard. But then that kind of passion, or just, oh, I like to do this, or I like to go to camp. That kind of turned after I did La Vida. So before La Vida, my dad would always want us to go on hikes, and I hated going on hikes. And before I went on La Vida, I hated rock climbing. We have a really really good rock gym where I live called The Edge. It's run by a program called Youth for Christ. And I had gone there a couple times, but I hated it because I was so scared of heights. Which is ironic because I love rock climbing. But as soon as I got over that, and I think really what it was is I didn't trust the system. I didn't trust the belay system. And so what I do as part of how I'm wired, when I don't trust something, when I don't love something, I ask more questions. When I'm nervous, I ask questions. Like if I'm in a hospital with somebody like that I'm nervous about, or like I'm nervous because I'm like sick or something, I ask questions and questions and questions because I gotta know what's going on. And so I did, and I asked questions, and I learned all about how the belay system works, and you are very safe in a belay environment. So doing that and kind of learning and being exposed to the outdoors like that, La Vida like style, it ignited a passion that I just didn't have before then. It was a simple, I loved the outdoors, but now it's a passion. Now it's not so much something I love, but it's now just something that's in and through me, and that's part of who I am. I'm someone who loves being out in creation. I love wildlife and outdoor photography. I'm a photographer. I love to rock climb. I actually work for the La Vida program now. I'm a Discovery TA. I hope one day to potentially lead trips as a Sherpa maybe. Yeah, I love the outdoors. That's a simple answer is I love the outdoors.
Yeah, so I guess when you get here as a freshman and you find out the cross country team spends a whole week up at base camp, you must have been pretty excited.
Hallelujah! Praise the Lord! I love it.
Yeah, what did you take away from that first week with the team?
I went into that week very unsure, a little bit begrudgingly, because I didn't want to run cross country.
Yeah, we actually the last show we did.
Football.
Yeah, the last show we did with Alex, he was explaining.
He probably said the same exact thing.
Yeah,
we both played
because you're both sprinters. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We're both the same kind of runner. We're both like, nope. But it was funny. So the first time I talked to Coach, I talked to him on the phone a couple of times, and I was like, Coach, no, I'm not running cross country. And then in March, after I did a second visit in March last year, and I visited, and then I called him up, and when I was committing, I was like, hey, I'm gonna come, run for your school. And he's like, great. And then I was like, there's a little dead pause in the conversation. I was like, listen, I want to make better. I know that what I'm capable of is not what I'm putting out right now. And if you say I should run cross country, if you want me to run cross country, I will. So I did. And I was only because of that reason that I was there in cross country. So I went in very grudgingly. But I came out with just a gratefulness that I had done it. And really cross country as a whole. I'm grateful that I did because it gave me a jump start into campus. I don't have any issues talking to people, and I don't have any issues reaching out and just talking to random strangers. There's been times where I talk to random people on the team, and my friends was like, dude, what are you doing? Just shut up, please. We don't want to talk to more people, but I can't help that. But it gave me a jump start onto campus, and being involved, and like orientation wasn't awkward. I actually didn't go to most of it. Don't tell nobody, but I skipped most of it because I was like, I'm already introduced. I'm okay. We're good. But going into freshman year, it gives you such a good group of well tight-knit people. There's something about cross-country teams, so not just any sports team, but cross-country teams putting in all those miles together. There's a different sort of bond that forms between a cross-country team and even a track team. There's something special about cross-country that I was really grateful for having in freshman year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the running community is a very good one, and there's just something special. It's hard to explain to somebody who might not know. But I remember freshman year, I was really fortunate for that opportunity as well. So I guess just kind of build on that. How did you get settled in when we got back, and how did you approach the first couple of meets of the year?
I was terrified, frankly. I remember Keene State wasn't one of our first. But Keene State, I remember I was terrified before. And it wasn't a rational fear either. It was I don't know what I'm getting into. Like it was part of that I don't understand what's going on. It's I guess the fear of the unknown because I don't have it all under control. I don't understand. And I remember asking coach, like, as we were like 3 minutes out from the line, I was like, coach, I'm freaking out. Like, I'm terrified. I don't want to go do this. Like, why am I doing this? How do I run this? How do I run 8K? Like, it's such a new thing to me. And he was like, I don't know what he said, but basically he was like, good that you're scared. It means you've got skin in the game. And it means you've got something to lose, he says. He likes to say that a lot. It's okay to be nervous because you've got something to lose. You're invested in something.
It means you care.
Yeah. Yep. He says that too. He tells me this more often than I care to admit. But for me, it was really tough because it was a whole new thing. But I remember it was my PR at the time at Keene State. And there's a picture of coach talking to me. Coach, his hand like this, he's talking, and I went up and I was talking to him after my race, and I was like, coach, something, like I did something, like I'm so frustrated because I did this and I should have done this instead. And it was just so helpful for him to break that down with me post race. That's something I really need as an athlete. Is I need the one-on-one intense like dissection of what I did. That's something I really look for as like a technical driven person and a detailed minutia driven person. I have to know, which plays into being a hurdler. I think that's part of the mindset that you need to have in a technical sport, and especially a technical event like that. Every degree and position that your body is in is influencing how you're going to get down and get over the next hurdle, and every like centimeter, every millimeter of where you are, that matters. And it can make you or break your race. So I think that is something that's really that's a really key thing I think. It's just that detail. But as far as settling into school, I don't remember. To be honest, I completely don't remember. I remember that I skipped orientation. I was mad at orientation. I just wanted to go hang out with friends with the cross country team. That's about it.
Yeah.
And I did for the most part.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so I guess I'll just ask you the same question I asked Alex, not having done cross country before, having a full season under your belt. Did that change how you approached going into the track season at all?
I can't say directly about going into the track season. Because for me, I dealt with a couple of little nagging injuries. I dealt with some tendonitis in my foot. And by the time we were just in the track season, anything I really had built up, it was just kind of out of stuff. So in terms of the track season, I can't really answer that. But I will say that in terms of my body and how I was running, Alex and I actually in December, we had a 50-degree, really humid, nice day. And it was a great temperature. And we went out and we actually ran a hurdle workout. And just coming right off cross country, I think it was actually in our back off period. I just felt more flexible. My legs were stronger. I knew getting over the hurdles, I was just stepping, something had changed in the way I was moving. And I knew instinctively that was because of cross country. That was because of those months of those miles and miles and miles that it had strengthened and done something that football hadn't. I still actually, as a person, after years and years of weightlifting and stuff, I'm a pretty powerful person, at least in my legs. I have explosive legs, from running and football and running. But there was another factor in the way that I was more mobile, if that makes sense. And I felt more secure, I guess, or I was more secure, but I was more confident. And I think that's something that having a successful season and feeling good coming off of it, that can give you a lot of confidence. And I think that's a really important thing as a runner.
Yeah. So obviously plans have changed. It goes without saying. But we got to run one meet at Bowdoin. And you were dealing with some sort of injury there, right? Yeah. So what exactly happened there?
So I actually didn't race at all. I've not raced. And when it pans out, I will not race a track race for probably close to 20 months until next year for my senior year of high school. I was dealing with a bit of a hamstring injury. I had been hurdling the week prior, 2 weeks prior, and it was cold. And so as I brought my leg up and extended out over the hurdle, my hamstring kind of went into what's called a spasm state. It wasn't quite a cramp, but it's similar. And so I was dealing with the after effects of that. What that spasm state had done had tightened up the muscle, so I had to work on it for a couple of days. Probably took 5 or 6 days for me to actually fully relax the muscle, using different heating, light stretching, stim, hammering it out, rolling it out, variation, depending on the day, of being able to relax the muscle out. But then after I got the muscle out, what happens is when your muscle is really, really tight, your tendon actually takes part of the load. So as my muscle had contracted and tightened up, it was pulling on my tendon and causing some tendonitis, causing some inflammation in my hamstring tendon on the back of my knee. And what that does, and so I had a hamstring issues throughout high school, and what that does essentially is there's a tight part here, and then you loosen this part, but this part is still tight, and then this part retightens the other part, and it's a compounding cycle, which is what I was dealing with on race day. still trying to get out of the cycle.
So that was obviously the only meet we got to do. So I feel kind of bad for you not being able to participate this year with everything that's happened. But what were your main events that you were training for and preparing for? I assume you're still doing mostly shorter distance, but you said you're a hurdle as well.
Yeah. So in that meet, I was planning on running the 60-meter hurdles. I believe I was going to be running an open 200 as a trial race. I'm not primarily a 200 guy, but then a 400. So the 400 is my main event. I'm a 400 and a 400-meter hurdler. So that was my main event. So that's what I was looking forward to is really just getting nice and over some hurdles. Not really stressing about the short hurdles, but then really hoping to, bust out a good time on my 4. Maybe I wasn't looking for PR pace, but I was looking to, be in good standing for early in a season. I was really happy about my time trial. We time trialed on Temi, and I led the pack. I had the fastest time, and I was really excited to get pounded away. But then those a little bit of nagging injuries kind of kept me back. So in hindsight, I'm trusting in God, and I'm trusting God has a plan. He's given me a second shot at another season later on down the line. And honestly, I can't be mad because I wasn't good on my training. I wasn't in the shape that I could have been. And potentially it could have been just a disappointing year. As disappointed as I am not to compete, I'm also relishing the break a little bit. As much as I'm a competitor at heart, and I love running, but I've been running for 7 years. And so it's odd and it's nice at the same time as it's bitter. It's a bittersweet moment because I'm having that, a little bit of that taste of other stuff that I normally get to do because I'm training for track. Yeah, so it's bittersweet right now for me. But I do know that eventually, as all runners do, they'll come back and be anxious and raring to go.
So while running's on hold, this we can move into academic stuff a little bit. I actually don't think I know what your major is, but
that's a funny question.
Yeah. So what do you want to do with your career? What are you studying, and where do you see yourself after you graduate?
So to give you the full story, we have to start sophomore year of high school, sometime in high school. So I feel called to work for the kingdom of God, to put it blankly. I feel God's calling me. He's going to use me in life to work in some sort of ministry fashion. And I don't know exactly what that's going to be. But so I originally felt called by, it's at the end of Mark. It's in Mark 16. And when Jesus talks about, gives his Great Commission version in Mark. And he says, in my, what does he say? Actually, I have my Bible right here. Hold on. I will just read it because it's highlighted. But this verse is really important to me, and kind of my framework for how I'm looking at the future. Mark 16:17 says, "And these signs will accompany those who believe in my name. They will cast out demons. They will speak in new tongues." And I recognize that I'm probably taking this out of context to its original meaning, and I say take this with a grain of salt. But to me, at that point, I was considering, picking up French. So I spoke Spanish, and I took Spanish for 8 years in high school, and I love Spanish. And God really put on my heart, okay, go take French. And so I started French my junior year of high school. And so what I originally was going to come to Gordon as was a combined languages major. Unfortunately, that has since been cut. But the core at the idea of it was, okay, God's calling me to, I have an aptitude, I can learn these languages, I love these languages. God's going to use that to open doors. And so over the years, I've kind of, in listening, I'm looking at working with ministry organizations and nonprofit organizations and even for-profit organizations that work in ministry in some way. Right now, I am on paper a business major, and I'm going to have a couple other things on the side, probably a French and a Spanish minor, potentially an IST minor. Right now I'm taking intro to nonprofit. But I really feel a desire and a burden to help people. And really what I like to call relational ministry. And just, I love talking with people and really getting deep with people. That's something that I just really enjoy, and I really enjoy speaking into people and being able to speak into people. One thing I recognize in my life is that I go through a lot of hard things, and I've been exposed to a lot of variety of different hard things in my life. Whether I've been through a couple breakups. I've been through moving schools. When I was younger, my family didn't have a lot of money growing up. We didn't really ever want for food, but sometimes things were tight. So there's a lot of different things in my life where I know that I've gone through them, and I know that I've been exposed to these things so that God can give me a sense of empathy to speak into other people who are maybe dealing with the same problem, albeit far worse, at a scale that I didn't. And so that's something that I recognize in my life, that I've been exposed to a lot of different things. And that's really just given me a heart for people. Now, granted, as with everybody else, I have to take a step back sometimes and be like, okay, yes, this person's annoying. Yes, this person's irritating. I still get annoyed and irritated with people too. Nobody's perfect, and the rest of the world isn't, obviously. We live in a broken world, and we're all sinners. So it's not always easy to empathize or have compassion for others. But something that really I have a real compassion for is material needs. And so growing up, I was exposed through church to this ministry called Hope of Life. They're based out of Zacapa, Guatemala. And they work to support local communities and local people who are impoverished. Essentially, there's something called extreme poverty. And what it looks like is that people have no access to food. They don't have access to shelter. They don't have access to even sometimes clean drinking water. Children are starving because they don't have access to the things they need to survive. And so what my church did is they would work to send teams down to just minister to local villages and different things. So whether that be helping to provide medical supplies and medical expertise. Something they did was they worked through a program called Carpenters for Christ, and they would go down and they'd help build buildings, orphanages, houses, different things to help the community grow and build itself in a sustainable way. And what I saw back from those mission trips were just pictures of kids like me who, even though I didn't have much, I had far more than they did. And that really just grabbed my heart from a young age, thinking, God, why have you given me this? Why am I blessed to, I live in America. I live in America, but I've been blessed to have all that I need for the most part throughout my life. Um, I've been blessed to be called by you to be a child of God. You saved me of all things. I've received the greatest gift, and that's your salvation. And so um, there's a verse in Psalms 30, 130, 30 or 130, and it says, "The Lord has dealt bountifully with me." And there's kind of an idea that I have throughout my life that moving forward into whatever ministry or however God's going to call me to work in His kingdom, I'm doing that because I have been given so much, and I've been blessed with so much that I can't do anything but give back. I can't do anything but um, choose myself to serve and to lift Him up and to lift others to Him. And specifically, what I want to do is two things. As I mentioned, relational ministry, and that's something I love. Is just be pouring into people. Um, I love interacting with people, and that's something that language goes hand in hand with. Just the connection with people and being able to hear their story and speak back into their lives. But also something I've come to realize through working in different things that I've been in charge of and be able to be a part of is I like fixing things, not just like fixing a car, although I do like cars, but I like to fix systems. And as a firstborn type A perfectionist person, I like to make things the best they can be. So for me, when I see a system or something that's running not to the best it can, it really bothers me, and I have to go fix it. So when something's running like not as efficiently, that's something I want to go fix. So the two things I guess I want to kind of work in my life, regardless of where they manifest, regardless of what ministry or what job or wherever in the world I go, I want to work, and I have a desire and a passion to work on fixing broken systems that are potentially things like ways that we can donate and support, communities in third world countries in ways that we aren't handing out, but ways that we are supporting, ways that they can support themselves, that are sustainable, that they can trend upwards and not rely on gifts from us. Or things like just reaching into broken people who are, stricken by disasters, and just showing the love of Christ, honestly, because I feel that I've been given so much. I can't help but want to pour it back out, and I can't help but want to and feel called to use my talents for something greater than myself.
Yeah, that's all wonderful. Thank you for that. So one thing that I noticed not too long after we met, I was scrolling through Instagram. I think it was Lewis Hamilton. I saw your name by. You liked one of his posts or something. So I know you've recently gotten into Formula One, which is a major interest of mine as well.
Yeah.
And it was really a Netflix series, right?
Yeah. So I watched Drive to Survive, and I instantly was hooked. I grew up, liking trucks, helping my dad change the oil in our car. He had a 2002 Chevy Cavalier that I helped him keep running for a long time. But, just being interested in working in cars, then having the little Hot Wheels sets and different things when I was little. Just always being fascinated. But then just like La Vida was a kind of an explosion of something I like to be like a passion of mine, that Netflix Drive to Survive series just kind of like clicked, and I was like, I'm hooked. So yeah, after that I got really, I was very interested, and I couldn't wait for like the next season of Formula One. And I downloaded the app and I followed, and I just started learning. I guess that's probably something you can pick up on is that when I get interested in something, I love to learn about it. So all the technology and all just the way it's a whole new sport for me to just play around in and explore. YouTube is great for that.
Yeah, they've really stepped up their game with their YouTube channel and social media for the last few years.
Definitely have over the past 2 years. But I'm really loving these
replays.
Live replays. Yeah, live replays. I have to say, I was so frustrated watching the 2016 Brazil Grand Prix, mostly because I'm not very fascinated by the story of Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. I really am not. I really, to be honest, I don't love Lewis Hamilton. I don't have really anything against him, but to me, I see him as like the top dog that I want to see come down. Much like I don't like Tom Brady. Like, he's almost a Tom Brady. Like, to me, Tom Brady is honestly kind of a jerk, to be honest. I think he's just not a nice guy. Lewis Hamilton's a nice guy. He's just really, really good at what he does.
I used to think that about Brady. I've kind of come around on him in recent years.
You know what? I'm a Bills fan, so I will not come around on Tom Brady.
Yeah, sure. You're forgiven if you're.
I've got more at heart.
AFC East fan, yeah.
Buffalo's in my blood. My family's from Buffalo, so those words will never be uttered out of my mouth.
Yeah. But the rivalry doesn't. That's not something that drew you in as much.
No, it doesn't interest me. No, not Nico and Ross. Not Nico and Hamilton.
I feel like 16 is one of the most underrated seasons ever. Because, I mean, yes, you had Mercedes winning almost every race, but at least you had that tension between these two old friends from karting, and now they're bitter enemies.
I didn't live through it, though. I didn't live and watch the season live.
Oh, that's true. I guess.
Now, if I had, I probably would be really interested. But being introduced by Drive to Survive, I'm really invested in the drama actually between Verstappen and Ricciardo. Those are who I like. Like, those are who I'm interested in. And those are probably, because they're highlighted so much and you get so much of that story and that tension in the first season, like, that's who I'm interested in. I want to see Red Bull come up to the top. I want to see Ferrari do well. I want to see a more level playing field, which, of course, now we're going to have to wait for with the extension of hybrid regulations and the postponement of the 2021 regulations.
Yeah. Now they're talking about even maybe 2023 if this thing
lasts. I didn't hear that. Oh, Ben. I didn't want to hear that.
Well, because here's the problem with F1 is it's a global enterprise. So, you know, if things get better here in the States, you know, I guess Italy's maybe a little bit ahead of us in terms of their peak, but you know, Ferrari's based in Italy, and you have a lot of teams based over in Europe, and
Ferrari, AlphaTauri.
Yeah, races all over the world.
England too. England is
so.
Yeah,
I think the pandemic's almost going to have to virtually go away entirely before the schedule. I mean, they might be able to host a race here or there, but you know, I think Bernie Ecclestone was saying earlier this week that if he were still in charge, I think he said he would have called the season off by now already, which is kind of crazy to think about. But
I can see that it might need to be done, which is so disappointing. I was so excited for that new era. The cars look really. What do you think about the car? Before I say anything, what do you think?
I want to be careful because I don't want to judge too harshly one way or the other until we see it on track. But I am very optimistic. Because I feel like the current cars we have now, it's difficult to follow. DRS helps overtaking a little bit, but yeah, it's been a while since I read through the whole regulations. I have to re-familiarize myself with them, but I am hopeful that it's hopefully going to produce better racing and maybe level the playing field a little bit. No, there's this spending cap, but it only applies to certain things. I think you're still going to see Mercedes, Ferrari, the higher budget teams with an advantage, but it'll maybe hopefully bring it a little bit closer.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that new spending cap will kind of level the playing field. I do want to see, the thing is, sometimes you're rooting for a team, sometimes you're rooting for a driver. So I'm rooting for Ricardo because I really like him. Because I saw him and I was first introduced to him in Drive to Survive, and I'm like, this guy's awesome. He makes it laugh. He's just an entertaining person to watch. And so you kind of rooting for him. So I'm rooting for Renault, but not Renault. I'm rooting for Ricardo. You know what I mean? I want Ricardo to do well, but also I'm rooting for Red Bull, for them to do well as a team instead. So at one point you're like, okay, can we pull the back teams up? And can we help Renault get to the top? You're rooting for Renault to come back up. And that's something I think they might be helped by the spending cap. Definitely teams like Williams and AlphaTauri and McLaren will be helped. But I think at the same time, I'm excited to have the new car because I think that potentially what Mercedes did coming into a hybrid era that they were so ready for, I think that we could potentially see them either take a step back or other teams push back up forward. And I got my fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt like Lewis was on pace to break Schumacher's records regardless. If the regulations get pushed back and, you don't really see anybody knocking Mercedes off their throne
that could really...
until there's a major shakeup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't even see. I think is it like 84 wins now or 85? I don't know.
I don't know the number.
Yeah, ridiculous, and just needs one more championship to tie.
Yeah,
Michael for the record there. But
I do think there is an interesting part to the postponement, which allows increased development. Given that they're going to have more time to develop this new era of cars.
Yeah, the timing couldn't have been worse because they were in Australia and they were about to literally send people out for FP1, and half the drivers left the track and said, we're not doing this. And it took F1 forever to make the call, the FIA forever to make the call.
I think that was a mess that they could have handled completely better. Yeah. But again, I see the point in them wanting to wait as long as they could, but they waited too long.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now, everybody's, they went to Barcelona and Silverstone and they tested these 2020 cars. Everybody's put all this work in for this season. And now if it gets postponed, what do you do with all that work? Do you create an upgraded car which you would have used in 2021, or you weren't even thinking about that because you were expecting new regulations? So there are so many questions that are going to have to be answered as this whole thing unfolds.
I think the teams that are building for new regulations will be helped with this. Like Mercedes built a car in mind for the 20, when did they switch to the hybrid era?
14,
14, not 13. Yeah, 14. If you built with a car in mind for 2021, then you're going to be okay. And maybe this increased development time will maybe even be positive for you. However, if you didn't build for 2021 and you're stuck with a 2020 car that maybe you can't do more development on, that's going to help you down the pipeline, then you might be at a loss. Your hands might be tied, and then you might be saying boo-hoo because now you're losing time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. So I guess this was right before Thanksgiving break. Ford versus Ferrari came out, and you and I went to go see that together.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I thought it was a very good movie. I thought it was very well done.
So you've taken up this interest in F1. Have you explored Le Mans and sports cars at all along with it?
Not so much. Less so have I gotten into racing, other race series. Then I probably have gotten into like sports cars and hypercars and like production cars. production cars, and I think they're a little bit more accessible. Looking at just being fascinated with things that come out on, Ferraris in particular. I've got a soft spot in my heart for Ferraris. Just they're so beautiful. But they're very accessible on things like Instagram. So being able to, again, just learn. And for me, that's part of enjoying something is learning about it. So being able to learn and experience. However, I do think that Ford versus Ferrari was very well done. I think that the cars were excellently done. Granted, I'm gonna make an egregious mistake, and I'm gonna compare it to Fast and Furious. In Fast and Furious,
I don't know about that.
Car fans cringe everywhere. Car fans and people who know better than me cringe everywhere.
Well, I actually haven't seen the Fast and Furious movies. Which
we're gonna
might
have
be
to
a
watch
bit of
it.
a surprise to some people, but
it's a Hallmark movie for guys. But my point in saying this is cars are so crazy in Fast and Furious, and they do crazy wild stunts with tons of plot armor. Ford versus Ferrari was very real, and they did a good job of very real. And I think the portrayal of oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. Not Shelby.
Ken Miles.
Yes, Miles. Ken Miles. Yes. His just exquisite and intimate knowledge of just machinery and the cars. I think that was so fascinating to see in a world that now cars are run by computers and simulations, and cars are engineered by simulations. But that car was engineered by him. That Ford GT, as it was done for Le Mans, was done by him. There were several scenes in the movie where he could hear something and say, no, do this instead. And nobody listened to him. But then when it came down the wire, he was right. Ken Miles was right.
Yeah, there's a stark contrast today, how everything is so sponsorship driven.
Yeah.
So, it's shows really in motorsports worldwide. If you have a rich parent who owns a company, or if you have the right connections, you bring sponsorship.
Excuse me, are you okay? What?
Yeah.
I think it was breaking up there.
Yeah, but that's half the battle right there. Aside from talent. You have
which is a shame, because it is such a revenue driven sport.
Yeah. But you have these kids get into these cars and know very little to nothing at times about what goes into the engineering and how everything, the ins and outs work. And you look back at the movie and it was a whole different era back then, and the drivers were hands-on involved in the engineering and giving their own input. How do we make the car faster? How do we engineer this and that?
I think that driver input is still pretty important. I think in series like Formula One, I think that because of the high variability of aero components and feel, and really once they put the cars through, I think that feel is a really big piece of that. So like we talked about Ken Miles feeling the car and feeling, no, this is wrong. Maybe not so much as the engine, as they can't really feel that and they don't intuitively know what's going on in there, but the aero component and feeling just the way the car is moving. I think that's a big thing. I think that won't go away anytime soon.
Yeah, but you enjoyed the movie very much?
I very much did, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it 5 times now.
Oh my gosh.
Rewatching it, yeah. I can't get enough of it. I have to say, I am always bothered when they get to the Daytona race, because
yes, you talk about this all the time.
Speedway in California, it's not actually Daytona, so that was a pet peeve of mine.
Yes, I knew that killed you. You gasped next to me, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, well, I knew it was coming walking into the theater, but it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they painted the walls and said Daytona, but it was still if you know the sport, that world, it's fairly obvious.
Yeah.
But that's just a minor detail, for me at least.
Yeah.
A casual fan's not going to pick up on that, but they shot some of the Le Mans scenes at Road Atlanta in Georgia.
Yeah.
Because, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, okay, I get it, Hollywood and Fontana's right there in California. But if you went out to Georgia anyway to shoot some stuff, I mean, Georgia's right next to Florida.
Give it a jump away from
Daytona's right
Daytona.
there too. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. I wasn't involved in production. I don't know what goes into the rights to set all that
one
up.
Day when you make your movie, I know for a fact that you will do it right. You will shoot Daytona at Daytona.
Yeah, well, that's not film isn't exactly the field of comm arts that I want to go into. There's so much about that I still have to learn about and I don't know yet. But I actually saw an op-ed on motorsport.com. I don't know. I mean, the 66 race is famous for so many reasons. The iconic finish and obviously Ford finally getting their victory. But I don't know as much about the 67 race, but some people are asking if there's any possibility we could maybe get a sequel.
To Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah, because if you remember the end screen, as the credits were starting to roll, it talked about how Ford went on to win 66, 67, 68, 69. So there's more to be worked with there.
More of the story,
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it did fairly well at the box office. So I
think in this day and age, with the way Hollywood puts out movies, I think that we could see a sequel. If something does well, I think we're going to push for something else. So I think we could see something.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow. And just, there are more racing stories in history that are definitely worth telling. Seeing how well this movie did was very encouraging and makes me excited for the future. I feel like we could see more movies like it fairly soon. Yeah,
I agree. I think as watching the racing world, I think there is obviously a big change going on. And racing fans and racers alike know that there needs to be a change in the way the sport goes about if it's going to survive. And I think that one way of ensuring the sport survives is to get people interested with movies like this. And I think, for one, that I just thoroughly enjoyed the movie, and I would go watch another racing movie. Yeah, I'm excited for the future. I mean, that's what got me into the sport. Period was Cars. When Pixar came out with that, that's how I became a NASCAR that was my
fan,
favorite movie when I was younger.
Yeah. So that
actually, that was my first. Cars 2. That was my first. Hold on, let me think of the word. My first exposure to Formula One. What was his name? Francisco Bernoulli. He was supposed to be a Formula One car. Yeah. The World Grand Prix getting everybody together. Yes. Yep. And think of this. He looks a lot like the 2021 regulations. If you look at it, there's some similarities, especially I think in the nose and the front wing. Yeah. I don't know. Who knows where they designed it from? Yeah. I don't know. I think this is just my opinion. I think it's commonly shared among Cars fans, but I feel like 2 is the weakest of the trilogy. I just felt like they spent too much time on the whole subplot with Mater becoming a spy. I don't know. I think 3 was weaker, honestly. I think it went 1, 2, 3. I feel like 3 kind of redeemed it. I don't know. 3. It wasn't as good. Like the original's the best by far. Oh yeah, of course. But I don't know. What I need to do is I need to sit down and watch all 3 in a row again, because it's been a while since I've seen the first 2. I think now that I'm thinking about it, Cars 3 had a lot more racing and technical racing things in it, especially with the simulators and things. And I think that now if I watched it, I might be more interested after getting more involved into the racing motorsport world. I think I might like that more now. So I'll have to give it another shot. Yeah. So I guess we'll close with this. NASCAR is really big here in the States. What Cars was based off of. Have you been able to get into that at all, or Formula One fan for now? I have not been able to get into it, and to be honest, I have never tried.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think there's I live in upstate New York, so it's not really popular where I live. I'm just not part of that culture. I don't have that pull, and so it's a little inaccessible, I think. There also is a stigma, just driving left, and then you go left, and then you go left, and you go left.
So you're more of a road course guy than an oval guy?
You know what? I might be, but I don't know. Only time will tell. There's just a lot I think that I just don't know, and I haven't dove into NASCAR yet.
Yeah. Well, I'd tell you to watch the Indy 500, but of course everything's getting canceled and postponed and pushed back.
Canceled left, right, and center.
Yeah,
I think I will get into IndyCar before I get into NASCAR.
Yeah.
I think that NASCAR, the cars just don't pull me in like Formula One or IndyCar.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like IndyCar's been like a blend of the two because
Definitely,
they've got
that's how I see it.
ovals and road courses. It's based here in America. It feels very American, but it's got a large international group of drivers that come over who got their start racing in Europe and overseas. But yeah, if you ask me, the 500 is the greatest race in the world. And right now it's tentatively been pushed back to August. But again, situation is so fluid right now. Who knows? But keeping my fingers crossed. Hopefully we at least get that in later this summer. All right, Josh. Well, I appreciate you logging on tonight. I know it's an unusual setup here. And it's the first one of these that I've tried over Zoom. So I'm sure we'll look back at, the setup and what worked, what didn't work, and what didn't work, and maybe be better prepared and make changes for anything in the future. But I appreciate you sticking it out with me and coming on here tonight to talk with me.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be your guinea pig. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. I've got a couple other people I've talked to, so I'll see if we can get those scheduled and get those podcasts up and running as soon as we can. But there's no schedule that's set in stone right now, like there is with Scout Radio.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next time, and have a good night. Hope you enjoyed the show.